Hello everyone, welcome to this overview of all of the new Nintex Automation Cloud features that we've seen released in the past 6 months. It's December 2023 and today we have just announced a very significant release which I will take you through. Now the use case that we're going to look at these for is a logistics company. They get very busy at this time of year. They're a global organization headquartered somewhere in the North Pole. So without further ado, let's get into the overview. So the first thing I'm going to cover with you is Nintex Tables. Released today, Nintex Tables is geared around the concept of data storage and data reference from within your Nintex Automation Cloud tenancy. So no longer do you need to create a CMS list or a database in order to store workflow instance data or reference data from within, say, a form. So we'll show you how you create a table, and I'll show you how those new workflow actions around creating rows within tables and also updating rows within tables. Some of the recent forms features that have been released have been very much geared towards efficient form building. So we'll go into the intelligent PDF form converter really quickly. I have done an overview video of this one in the past, but it's worth highlighting again as it's a really clever way to build Nintex Automation Cloud forms from a PDF that you may already have in the organization. So while this gives you a quick build experience, think about the fact that that form has also been adopted. Your end users recognize the labels, they recognize the order, and they already know what's required of them to complete a form, so you're going to get a little bit of adoption much quicker as you digitally transform those PDF forms. And we'll look at the AI form generator within forms as well. Released quite recently, it's the ability to build a form from a story that you tell an AI front end. So you input the requirements of the form from within the form canvas AI form generator, and it's going to generate that form for you. So essentially when you're starting from nothing, if you've got an idea and you want to really accelerate the build of that form. Then we'll take a look at form plugins. So introducing the concept of extensibility through code, the ability to add certain custom controls into your eForm. So we'll have a look at not only how you would do that within your Nintex Automation Cloud Forms canvas, but also where you can get some pre-built plugins that the team here at Nintex have already created. We'll take a quick look at a new form control address validation using the Google Maps location lookup. And we'll also have a look at form translation settings. So the importance of being able to choose a form language and have your end users see and visualize and respond to that form in more of a native language. But also how things like your regional settings in your browser pick up on the languages that are available to you. So again, we're using a bit of artificial intelligence here to do the translations from over 175 languages globally. Also released today, form access or form permissions. Now, this is also part of streamlining that accessibility or forms access through My Nintex. So the ability to restrict the access of a form to individuals or groups that you create in your Nintex Automation Cloud environment. And then being able to surface only those that are visible to those people through My Nintex and Nintex Mobile. And last but not least, we'll take a look at some workflow admin improvements that have been released quite recently. So the ability not only to terminate running instances, but also to resubmit. So if a workflow potentially has failed, the ability to make changes to the workflow underlying definition and then resubmit on that new error-free path. And also if you need to delete particular workflow instances from the environment altogether, if that's part of your data sovereignty requirement. Okay, so without further ado, let's go help the big man in the red suit. Welcome to Nintex Automation Cloud. It's a very fresh environment, so you'll get to see how I go through the configuration of these actions and options as well, so that you can light them up in either your current tenancy or through a trial tenancy if you grab one. So the first thing I need to do is light up some settings for my form. So I'm going to go to my settings and I'm going to my form settings, and I want to enable CSS because we're going to do some style sheeting. My translation has already been set up, but what I need to do is add the languages that I want to cater for at the end. So sadly for Santa and his elves, there is no elf as a language for form translations. But let's pick a couple at random. So here in Asia Pacific, we work with Japanese customers, we work with Thai customers, we work with Indonesian customers, we work with Korean customers. We also have Maori, which is in New Zealand. And in Melbourne, we have a really big Greek community, and we have a very big Italian community. Now, sadly for me, there is no Scottish on there, so we'll have to make do with English, but we do have Gaelic through Irish, so I'll pop that on too. Now I'm going to add some plugins, so I want to enable the creation of plugins here as well, but I'll leave my form access off because what I want to do is maybe create further down the track some public anonymous forms that I'm going to make available through my website that don't require authentication to access. Cool. Alrighty, so I've done my config, not a lot else that I needed to do there, so I can now jump back to my Automate tab, and the first thing I want to look at is Nintex Tables. As you'll see, it's in beta, so it is launched today, but it is a beta function, and more improvements to it and additions will come down further through the release cycle. So I'm going to create a table. My table needs a name. So what we're going to build for today is, let's say this is a PDF form that Santa currently gets from all of the children and the parents and the guardians around the world, and telling them how to where to leave refreshments, where to leave the presents, so on and so forth. I've got my access details there and everything else. But we really need to digitize this. We really need to introduce some efficiency in here. We need to do some reporting on this. And we also need to make this form a little bit smarter and a little bit more accessible for anyone who doesn't speak English as a first language. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a table name. So we'll call this my visits table. And let's say it's a list of applications for Santa to visit. Okay, let's create that table. I'll pick a couple of things. I'm not going to go through every single control. So maybe we'll grab name, address. Let's do some important stuff like the refreshment. And I think that should be enough. Okay, so we'll go with the text control here. And we'll call this the applicant name. Can add things like a default value if need be in a description. So if you think about maybe using this as a status table, perhaps to be able to update a row and have a status column in there. I'll add another choice control for the address. I'll add another control for, let's say, the date. Well, maybe we don't need the date because everything's going to be the 25th. And the last one I'll do is a refreshment. So as the release is sort of further down the track for this, we'll then look at adding this as a data source variable in forms. So we can change this from being what is in this use case going to be capture of applicant details through a workflow action. We might want to standardize things like our choice controls. So the ability to say, well, you know, on the form, I really want to standardize the refreshments that we're going to put on the form to be able to select. So I'd have a refreshments table which would have those options in there, and I now don't need to worry about, you know, this sort of expansion table or add new information on a blank sheet. Okay, so I've got my controls here, and then we'll keep it simple for the sake of the demo. Now I can also import from a CSV. So if you've got existing data, and look, we know that people are using Excel for a variety of reasons. It's as a database tool and listing and tables and forms tools and so on. So we will allow you to upload from a CSV to actually create your tables much quicker, more efficiently, and there's even a nice handy template that you can use to add that data on, which is going to make life that little bit easier. So here's my table, my blank table, because I'm going to populate this through workflow. So I want to create a workflow. So I'm going to go into my create workflow. and here's my workflow canvas. So the first thing that I need to do is create my form, and I want to go through some of those early form creation options for you. So amongst my start event options is a form. Now in this example, in the real world, I would have this as a public anonymous form, and I would send that to all of the parents and guardians and children around the world, and they would fill that in, or I would host that on my northpole.com website for people to access. But I want to show you form access, so I'm going to change this to authenticated users in the tenant, which is an option that's only available to that authenticated form. Let's design the form. Okay, so we're in my form canvas, blank canvas. If I needed to start creating my form quickly, I've got my drag drop, and then I would name my controls. But in this instance, I've already got that PDF. So what I want to do is start with PDF. And I'm going to import the PDF so that it can be translated as a Nintex e-form. So all I need to do is upload the PDF, and then I'm going to change this to convert the page. So here's my controls replicated in what my Nintex Forms engine thinks is the right control. So we've got some choices in here, we've got some plain text in here, we've probably got a date down here at some point, but you can see it's a little bit on the messy side. So what you can do is you can start to exclude things from the form. So you can work your way through, say, well, applicant details is actually going to be a header, so I can remove that. Gift placement ID is going to be a header, and so on. So it's still quite a lot of work. You can change content if you need to, so you can change different controls. So if you've got an email control that you need an email, or if you want to change your name, you've got your name in writing down there, I can change that to a signature control, so on and so forth. Then I would finish this in the form designer. So I would do all my styling, my rules, my form variables, so on and so forth. But there's still a lot of work there for me. So what I want to do is actually use the start with AI concept. So I'll open up my AI, my little conversational GPT. Now, this is a nice little tip. A handy tip that I've seen used is actually the ability to copy your PDF and pop that in to the prompt and ask the engine to generate a form for you. So that has taken the information from the PDF, and it's actually used that large language model and the information it knows about Santa's visit and the different control headers and so on, and I reckon it's done a much better job than the conversion to PDF. So great for the simple things, but I think something like this, that works really well when you're using that start with AI. So that ability to copy and paste from a PDF, it's a little tip that I picked up from my team, and now I can customize in the form designer, or I can change some of these options if need be. So I could say, well, actually the difficulty level is a number, and that'll change that on the form for me when I apply those changes. So we should see difficulty level change to a number control. And then as you work your way through, you can even ask it to suggest new fields. So when you've done a little bit of work on that form, and what it'll do is it'll say, well, other application forms we've seen XYZ of a control added. Okay, so now I just need to customize this in the form designer. So I've got a few options that will run through from that initial introduction of new features. So the first thing that we need to do is we're going to add an address lookup. Nice and easy. So we'll add an address lookup control, which will allow me to do my Google Maps lookup. So we've got my applicant details. Here's my address. So what I can actually do is I'll delete that control and I'll drag in a dedicated address control. And that'll allow me. So I need a Google Maps API key, which I will add, but we'll pop that in. So I go to my settings. I can give this form a title, so we can say this is Santa's visit. You can even add your fave icon, so it'll change this from a Nintex logo. So if I wanted to, I can add a little logo in there. You may or may not have seen that. It needs to be a PNG. And we'll add our location services. So I'm just going to pop the Google Maps API key in, that I'll be using, and I'll see you back here in a second. Okay, so we've added my API key. If I go to my preview now, we should be able to type the address. Let's say it's the Nintex head office in Melbourne. There we go. So powered by Google, we're doing that address lookup, which is pretty cool. The form's a little bit blank, it's a little bit plain, so let's just chuck in an image. We've got a little image up here, so I'll just pop in a logo as an example from that source URL. He's a little bit big, so let's shrink his head up there. But then if I go to my styling, I want to add a style sheet. I don't love the background on this. Maybe we want to change the primary color to a little bit more festive as well. So we'll change that one. That'll change things like my logo and any table surrounds and so on. But really what I'm interested in now is my CSS. So I can actually style my forms now using CSS and even the embedded editor. So what I'll do is let's change the background. So I've got a little bit of script. I'll add that and apply those changes. So we've got a nice festive background now to my form, and you can start to really play around with those. What I would recommend is having a look at the custom CSS help topic information on help.nintex.com, because what that's going to give you, it's going to give you things like those different label areas and naming conventions and so on that you're going to want to be able to tweak using CSS. Okay, let's apply those styles. And I want to move to translation. So what I want to do is choose my, take my languages that I'm going to use on that form. So I can start to add the different languages that will be available to me. So if I go to my designer, I go to translation settings, and I add the form languages. So remember in the configuration, we added some form languages that we want my form to be converted into. So I'll pick one of those now. So we'll go with Japanese. And we'll go with Italian. So they're going to be my languages that I'm going to offer my form in. Obviously you can add many more than that, and then what we need to do is just simply match the translation. Now you can do this manually, or you can actually just auto translate. So select my language and auto translate that particular form. Go down to my Japanese, auto translate. Again, this uses a bit of AI to do that control match and control name match, but also error and system messages as well. So now if I go to my preview, you'll see that I've got those new languages in the dropdown. And this is what it'll look like for the end user. Okay. So what else do we have to show as part of my form? We've done address validation, we've done my form translations, we've done AI generator, we've done intelligent PDF form converter. So the only thing really on the form side now is my form plugins. So I'm just going to apply those changes. I'm going to save my workflow, and I'm going to go back to my administrator screen. But I'm also going to jump up to a very special resource that I think everybody should have bookmarked, which is gallery.nintex.com. Pop down to the plugins area, and you're actually able to leverage some of the plugins that we've already got. So things like dynamic tables, adding addition of workflow commentary, there's an embedded e-sign capability. The one I really quite like, I'm going to use this for how naughty or how nice have you been over the year, is the star review plugin. So it just gives you a little star review asset there. So I'm going to grab that URL, copy the link address, and what I'm going to do in my settings, my automate, is I'm going to go to plugins. I'm going to add plugins. So if you already use Nintex extensions, the ability to extend and build custom workflow actions using APIs, this is a very similar concept. So the ability to add customized controls to a form. So you can obviously upload your JavaScript file, but I'm going to link to that URL that I just copied. And I'm just going to pop in the element name here, which is stars plugin, and add that plugin. And my plugin will now be available to me. Now again, hop into the SDK at developer on help, or have a look at help developer.nintex.com to see how else you could extend your Automation Cloud remit. So really starting to think outside the box for the usage of Automation Cloud. So go back to my workflow. Open up Santa's visit, open up my form, And we should now have my star rating at the top. So I'm going to find my naughty or nice. Here's my good behavior level. There we go. So I'll just copy that control name and drag in my star rating. So there we go. And then you would save that rating in a variable. So I could add a new variable to save that rating. A new form variable to store that rating. So let's say this is my behavior and it is an integer. And what we have is on my form, my rating. There we go. So create that variable. So when I can then reuse that whenever I use that star rating control. So there we go. Now what I would probably do here is add a little label just above the star rating, just so we know, because the actual control itself doesn't have a label. So we'll just pop that in. What's the text of the label? And you can style that and so on. Okay. So we've got through form plugins, translation, we've got our AI generator, we've got our PDF generator, we've got a look at Nintex tables, but we need to build that in a workflow, address validation, form translation. So let's apply those changes and let's pump this into a table. So if you are using Nintex Automation Cloud from today, you'll have these new table actions. So create a row, which is really exciting. So now I just need to point to my table, which is my visits table, and I just add to the column. I want to select everything there, and I just match these up. So I just go into my start event, form variables, I find my address, which is actually that Google Maps lookup. Let's scroll down to formatted address. I've got my applicant name. I've got the name, that's the name of the row. So this might be slightly different. So we could say maybe, look at the name of the row might actually be Workflow Instance ID, right? Just to keep that very, very unique. Because we've got 2 John Smiths, we've got 2, there's probably 2 Chris Ellises around the world. I can guarantee there is. So we'll go back to my start event, form variables, and the last one we want is the refreshment provided. So what's the refreshment type? We can add that. Now we can store that table ID, so this is my visit, as an object. And now what we might want to do is issue a task to Santa to say, here's the information that's been provided, so on and so forth. And then as a table, we could update that row. So now we can go in and say when the condition, so potentially when the ID, I haven't selected that table, so I'll select the table. But when the ID is equal to the ID of the table, then I want to update my status column if I had a status column to meet a particular value. And if it's been declined, I could say, it's been declined. So the output of that. So this is really, really exciting. This means that we're moving much, much more into being able to build things like wrapped solutions and being able to store and persist that information within Nintex Automation Cloud. Okay, so I'll just delete that one. I'll publish my form. The very last thing I want to do before I submit this, before I send this out to the big wide world, is I'll just tweak those form permissions. So under my form access, which is a new label that you'll have on your forms as well, is the ability to change this access level. So I can say, in fact, this is going to these two and not solution day. So I can add that capability. Or what we could do is, let's go to settings, let's go to user management, and we'll create a group. So we've got a group here called the North Pole. It's for all North Pole staff. The owner, we'll make that the big guy, and members will just be the elf and Santa Claus. So we'll add that. Now we'll add another group. Let's call this the South Pole, and this is the South Pole users. where it's somebody different, and add that. So now what we can do, if we go back to my automate page, we've got my two groups. We'll go to my automate. We'll change the form access permission to the North Pole users only. We'll close that off, save. And if we open up my Nintex, we should, as a South Pole user, and I go to submit a form, I don't see anything. But if I was logged in as Santa Claus or the head elf or any member of that North Pole user group, I would see that form within my within there. Okay. I'll just take that off. So because I'll just access it from here, so I can open that up. As you'll see, I'm not authorized to access the form because I'm in that South Pole group. So form access, take a look at that. Really, really good way to start very much creating unique applications, particularly through my Nintex. So I'll just tweak that just now so that I can get access to that. Save. Let's open that up, and then last thing we'll do is look at some of the workflow admin improvements. Okay, so here's my form. It's up there, northpole.workflowcloud.com, if I wanted to fill it in any of those other languages that I chose. So I'd quite like my my gift placed under the Christmas tree. Thank you very much. Well, let's take a whiskey. Thank you. Yes. So obviously I would have made a few changes to the form, just because maybe a hide show, maybe tweak the choice controls a little bit, so on and so forth. So that's the name in there. My Christmas wish. I've been really good this year, so I'll take a GT3. Thank you very much. Yep, we got a chimney. Here's all my chimney information if needed. Unsure of the load bearing capacity, and yes, I promise I will be asleep when the big man comes. So we'll submit. We could redirect here. I think that would be really smart. You can even redirect to a dashboard page using form plugins, so on and so forth. So the last thing that I just want to validate and double check, if we go back to my Nintex Automation Cloud environment, look at my table information. I should have one new row, which looks like I do. There we go. There's my unique workflow instance ID. There's my name. I didn't pull through the address, so I'll have to check that out. Yes, I'm getting a refreshment. So that's us. We've had a look at a few really quite incredible new features that have been released. Nintex Tables beta today. It's coming with much more feature capability further down the track. Your data source variables to lookup table information as well. But let's get stuck in to using lists and tables. No need to use other applications to store Nintex Automation Cloud data. We looked at how to quickly build a form either from an imported PDF or using that form generator. So thinking about those great ideas that are up in your head, being able to get them into a form really quickly. Then we looked at a couple of new form capabilities, form plugins, extending that form using customizations, and also validating the address data on forms using that information. Being able to cater for different languages, so different end users speaking different languages to access your forms. And then how can I segregate those forms using form permissions? And the last thing, which I didn't cover, but I'll really quickly show it now, is just that instance information. So I've got one running instance here. It is complete, so I can't terminate it. But what I can do is I can select to delete that entirely from my tenancy. So it will be gone. Thank you very, very much for your attention, for your time. Really looking forward to hearing how you're using all of these new features. If you don't have an Nintex Automation Cloud tenant, go to nintex.com, www.nintex.com, grab a trial, or reach out to your local Nintex representative or your account manager, or even me. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your partnership over the course of the year. Have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.